Hey everybody, this is Silverspook and this is the Silverspook live stream. Um, I hope that everything is coming through. Oh, let me make my head a little bit smaller here. Yeah, so this is the Silverspook stream video about the Pitch Black Fast 10. I should probably have said Fast 10 first. Everybody knows what Fast and Furious is. More than Pitch Black, and also why Riddick, the Riddick universe, is better than the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So obviously, starting off at very upsetting to the biggest franchises in the world, fans. But if you don't know what Riddick is, because I think that in 2023 maybe less people know what Riddick is than in the noughties. Even then, it wasn't the biggest movie series, but it was. Riddick is one of mine, and I know Holly also favorite universes. And I do take a lot of inspiration, also from the Riddick world. But just to give people some context for that, since you might not know what it is, Riddick. Pitch Black is one of the first movies in the Riddick. Well, the first movie in the Riddick universe. So, this is a screenshot from Pitch Black. Let's just throw that up on the screen here real fast. Pitch Black. So, Pitch Black was a movie that came out in 2000. It's a 2000 American sci-fi movie, action horror, directed by David Twohy, co-written by David Twohy and no, I don't want to see that. David Twohy and Jim Wheat and Ken Wheat and Vin Diesel at this time, as Holly pointed out, this is not Pitch Black here. Pitch Black is up in the corner. A transport ship crashes and leaves the crew stranded on a desert planet inhabited by bloodthirsty creatures that come out during an eclipse. That's like the basic premise of it. So, it's sci-fi horror, like in the vicinity of the Alien franchise, the Alien world. Also, what's up, Victor? It's probably the closest. Riddick is probably the closest to I don't know, Alien. It's not. It has some Predator elements to it. But it's definitely a sci-fi horror. The first one, Pitch Black. Oh, you know what? I just realized I didn't even share this. I didn't even share this video around. I'm gonna have to go do that. Maybe I'll pause the video. I'll pause and do a little Neofeud trailer about 20 minutes in, and then share it around. But anyways, so Pitch Black is the first installment, and it centers a crew that are on board a ship that is being transported. I just want to get some scenery. So they're being transported through space, and it includes. Let's see if we can get the ship from Pitch Black. It includes Vin Diesel, who is a prisoner on the ship. Vin Diesel is playing the character Riddick. This is when the ship crash lands. While traveling through space, what is the name of Pitch Black plot? Let me throw it on the side here. So a deep space transport crash lands on a desert planet circled by three suns. Among the survivors are Carolyn Fry, that's the second in command on the ship. Mystic, well, he's Muslim. Why do they call it Mystic? Abu Imam Al Walid, played by Keith David, the amazing Keith David. And then we also have ostensibly cop. He's actually a mercenary. William J. Johns and convicted criminal Richard B. Riddick. And their first thoughts are of survival and escape. And so they're kind of so they're flying through space, like in this scene. The ship encounters micrometeorites or some kind of interstellar medium hazard. They hit the caltrops on the the galactic superhighway, and then all the ship systems fail. Multiple people are like killed in the initial impacts, and then the ship has to crash land. It starts barreling, nosediving towards this planet that they have no idea what it is. And so this is like it starts off with this intense scene where they're trying to just not die in a flaming pile of spaceship crater and ash and cinder. And so anyway, so that's kind of the opening to it, and the movie kind of goes on to explore they crash land. A lot of people die in that crash, and they have to survive on this planet. I forget the name of the planet. What is the name of that planet? So the planet that they're on is, what is a planet in Pitch Black? 500 years in the future, the space horror film, planet M6117. Yeah, that's what it is. So the Pitch Black planet. It's a very interesting science fictional world. It has this. The planet is very desertish. It is mostly lifeless. It kind of looks like a endless, infinite, like Australian. Well, it literally was filmed in Australia. Wasteland, desert, crossed with like some areas that look a little more Sahara-ish. It's hotter. It's definitely hotter than any Earth desert because there are 3 suns, and at all times the suns are positioned such that there is never any nighttime on that whole planet. So it's constantly daytime. It's constantly being bombarded with solar radiation. It's constant scorching desert, high noon sunlight, basically everywhere on the planet. And so that what that causes. Is that Big Teal in there, by the way? Anyways, if it is, what's up? So what it does is that causes the planet to be very hot. It's very inhospitable to life, and so that's part of the science fictional, the fun sci-fi part about it is that you have but there are some life forms on the planet, right? Because when you're looking at the on the surface, right, they have these bone structures that they find. Like this is a picture of some of them. These bone structures of some huge, like brontosaurus-sized, possibly land mammal or land reptile, and you have bones of things, and there's a couple trees. There's a couple tree. Oh no, I'm sorry. Is there trees? Maybe there's not trees. They thought it's trees, but it's actually not. It turns out to be the skeletons of these huge creatures, and so they're like, but where? What like there's these bones, but then it's like where is all the life, right? That part's a little bit like Alien or like Alien Covenant. I remember in Alien Covenant they land on the prospective Earth-like Goldilocks zone planet that has the temperature, water concentrations, and has already some existing flora, just the flora, and so they're like, but where's all the life? I don't know if you remember that. If you've seen Alien, if you're a sci-fi nerd like myself, and how you have seen every single one of these movies, but they basically there's no animal life. They're like, why is it so quiet? There's nothing here, right? There's not even like bees or birds. There's nothing, right? There's no animal life at all. There's plant life though, right? And so what they find out is that well, if you know anything about Alien, you can guess what happened to the animal life. Similarly, in Pitch Black, it is you. Okay, you have a different account. Big Teal, it is you. That's my C3PO talking to R2D2 impression. Anyway, so this is so in this scene. Speaking of sci-fi, so but Marvel Cinematic Universe is also a sci. We're gonna get to that. I'm just trying to like lay the groundwork. Start out more chill than I did last time. So plus I was on Twitter a bunch this morning, which is you know how that can be. Anyways, so the on the planet you have this wasteland. There's no life. It's extremely hot. It's scorching hot. Um, and so all the crew, right? Fry in Pitch Black. The characters are. Let's see. Fry what the captain dies, and then Fry in the beginning of the movie. The girl in the back there, not the guy in the front is Mr. Policeman / prison bounty hunter. He makes money. He's like a U.S. cop, which is established to make money, capturing escaped slaves for profit. We're gonna get to that part of the show, but Fry's character is here. Yeah. So she kind of like makes a decision to when the ship is crashing. There's a point where they have to drop cargo because they can't like right the ship. Like, my butt's too heavy. It's like they can't get the ship in a crash landing. They can't get the ship in a crash landing orientation, right? So she's like dropping the cargo, like hitting, like pulling the emergency release levers to drop like whole sections of the ship behind, so that the people in the front survive, right? And then eventually it comes to the point where like they're carrying just civilians, and as well as there's a prisoner, right? There's Riddick, but there's a point where the Fry character has to choose where she might die, but if she doesn't like release the crew in the back, and so she makes a decision. She's about to release the crew. I mean, sorry, she's about to release the passengers and let them die, right? Like drop them off the back of the ship to save herself. And then the captain. I mean, in the thing is, it's a kind of a morally difficult decision, because if everybody might die, right? But it's like the chances of at least somebody living or her living is higher if she was to drop the passengers. The captain says, "Don't do that. You can't do that." And like he goes and he hits another he I forget exactly what he does. Holly probably remembers. He like hits another switch so that a part of the ship opens up so that she can't actually drop the crew. It just stops her from it like circumvents the crew release or the passenger release switch. So but she does choose to basically, anyway, so that comes in play later, because that's a lot what Pitch Black is about. It deals with like humanity and morality, and are people selfish, saving themselves, or are people do people like make choices ever that are not selfish for the collective, and which one do they do? Because Riddick's character is somebody, I haven't really talked about him, but that is important later on, because Riddick himself, in the span of the entire Riddick universe, which is a multi-movie, there's at least 3 movies. There's a 4th one coming soon, starring Vin Diesel again, and then there's also the Riddick multiple animated movies / short / videos, or I don't know if there's a TV series, but there's definitely comic adaptations. There's like some novelizations and some animated bits, and there's at least 3 movies: Pitch Black, Chronicles of Riddick, and then Riddick with Katie Sackhoff, who also plays the head of the Mandalorians, the descendant of the former leaders of Mandalore. Katie Sackhoff plays what the hell's her name? I can't remember what her name is. That one Mandalorian that is not Din Djarin. You know the other one? I made a whole video about Mandalorian. I can't believe I can't remember that. I can never remember names, so I need to. Anyways, so Katie Sackhoff actually is in Riddick which came out in the 20 teens. Pitch Black came out in 2000, so this is like a 23-year-old movie. So that's why I have to kind of explain. Like a lot of people might not know. It's actually Pitch Black Fun fact though, before I get back to the main story, Pitch Black is actually Vin Diesel's first like pretty big main character role. Like, I mean, he prior to this, Vin was in Saving Private Ryan. I don't know if you remember that. It was one of his first movies, 1998 with Tom Hanks. Blah blah blah, and what's his name? Saving Private Ryan with Steven Spielberg. Right, it's about the World War II movie. So that was actually one of his first roles. He plays this character. He's just a fighter, a soldier on the U.S. side in World War II. And then after that, he goes in. I think it was in. What was after that? Was it Iron Giant? Can't remember. But he was never really a central character. He wasn't in the Fast and Furious yet. So when as Holly pointed out, Holly is Vin Diesel Uber stan. So Holly is loves all the fast. Holly has seen more Fast and Furious movies than I have. You know what I'm saying? I've seen them more times than I have. So Holly is the guru on that. If you want to have any questions about that, Holly's also in the chat moderating as always. So anyways, back to this. So Pitch Black was actually Vin Diesel's first major protagonist role where he's basically the star, right? He wasn't a well-known name. Pitch Black was not a huge movie. Pitch Black was like it was smaller than Alien Resurrection, obviously smaller than Alien movies, but Alien is not the biggest franchise. I mean, the Star Wars are bigger. It wasn't even Alien Resurrection, or even I would say Hellraiser was more well known. Pitch Black was just some sci-fi movie that didn't have a gigantic budget, So, it doesn't mean it was bad. It just means that it wasn't a huge movie, and it was kind of a breakout role for him. He had made like an independent film that was actually about his own struggles as a mixed ethnicity actor, who is he's always kind of too, not quite black enough to play black characters, but not white enough to play white characters. So he was always like not quite able to get roles because he didn't like fit as a mixed race person. He didn't really fit what the casting directors in Hollywood was looking for. And so that was actually one of his first movies. It was an independent movie about the struggles of being a mixed race person and not being white or black enough or whatever it was. And so and he does kind of look, he is very like ethnically ambiguous. Like he has a lot of very like African or black characteristics, but then his skin is not, it's not as black as some people's who are. I mean, I'm trying to say that in a way that's not. He's just he doesn't look the way that Hollywood would stereotypically cast someone who's playing a African American character, right? And then he's also like you're not quite leading man, so I don't know what you are. I don't know what you are, Vin. So we can just, I don't know what we're gonna do with you. I guess you can just not be in anything, right? And so that was kind of when so he often like thanked Steven Spielberg because Steven Spielberg kind of like took a chance on, or like helped him get a start when a lot of people didn't. So anyways, but then in Pitch Black he was the Pitch Black was kind of his first big breakout role, as I said, and then after that came Fast and Furious, which of course took off and sped off with his gracious headlights guiding the diesel powered engine of the future blockbuster major success that is the entire Fast franchise. There is full disclosure, I am currently eagerly awaiting the increased funding as well as new, hopefully soon to drop screenshots of the Riddick 4 Furia. I think it's called Furia. Holly knows. It is the fourth in this installment. Of course, we have to. There's still labor disputes, let's say, in the region of Hollywood with the writers and soon to be actors and directors, of course, on strike. So they might not be doing too much film production at this moment or in the very near future, but I do hope to see Riddick 4. So I'm definitely as somebody who likes these movies, and I want to see the next one as well. So that's part of why I'm doing this. Pitch Black though. Back to Pitch Black. So anyways, Vin's character is Riddick is somebody, as I said, who survived. Let me see if I can get this. Okay. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna go to the Riddick wiki where you can get all the lores. You know what I'm saying? Look at that. When I type in Riddick, the first thing I get is Riddick lore in my search box. That's how you know. That's my badge of Vin Riddick based sci-fi geek cred, is that I just type that in and that's what the autocomplete does for me. So Riddick lore. Wait, what is it? Furia. Yeah. So Riddick is from this planet called Furia in this universe. Okay, Furia is a dead world in the Furian system and was once the homeworld of the Furians, a thriving spiritual warrior race. So, very much like many indigenous peoples, colonialism is going to come into this. It's going to come into this. It has to come into everything because it's been all over the planet for centuries. Furian landscape counterpart from the Chronicles of Riddick. The planet has an eccentric orbit that makes it difficult to chart. It's also considered cursed. For these reasons, it has a very Mandalore vibe already, right? For these reasons, the planet is rarely visited. Some fans suspect that Furia may be a volcanically active planet due to eccentric orbit. Anyway, that's not the most important thing. In one genocidal wave, the Necromonger Empire culled an entire generation of Furians. That's the important thing. It's very similar, actually, to Mandalore and the Empire in Star Wars, bombing into annihilation the entire planet, which I talked about in a recent stream where I spoke specifically about the Mandalorian colonialism, imperialism, and struggles that are also echo what we go through here in U.S. occupied Hawaii. And I was trying to find that. Yeah, Mandalorian and imperial collateral damage. So if you want to learn more about that, there's actually, now think about it now, there's a lot of parallels. But this is not a stream about Star Wars. So in Furia, though, the important thing is that Riddick's home planet was invaded, and you don't necessarily get this from the Pitch Black movie. Pitch Black is a very the focus is basically the ship, the planet. It's a survival. It's a scope of Alien, the first Alien. It's very alien-like. The ship arrives on a planet, really bad things happen, and people try to survive, and 12 to 15 crew members gets whittled down by a combination of homicidal betrayals. There's no murderous, unhinged AI. Like Stable Diffusion and ChatGPT don't take over all the robotic kitchen knives and the airlock system and do a HAL 9000 like happens in Alien. But it does have the crew is trying to survive and they're getting killed, and then creatures are there that are killing and people are killing. That all these things happen. Until there's it's a final girl. That's what it is. It's a final girl horror movie. Although it's not a final girl, it's a final. Well, I'm not going to say what it is, but it may or may not include girls, guys, and non-binary people. Final people, though. So, anyways, Riddick, I want you to watch it. So Riddick has his story is not his history is not really included in the first one. All the most you get about him is that Riddick is a character. As his history, he says, you get a little bit, but not very much. I think it's like, I woke up, when I was born, my mom dropped me off in a trash bin in front of a liquor store, So I don't have, it's kind of his point is that like he was kind of discarded. That's a story that that he was at least told about himself. Um, and so he's somebody who is definitely he has a lot of, let's just say he's very negative on humans. He's very I say misanthropic, but yeah, I guess so. He has a very cynical perspective, right? But he has is justified because his planet, his entire planet, right, Furia, was in fact invaded. Like all the newborn Furians, it has echoes of, King Herod and the mass murder of children to prevent the oracled the what do you call that prophesized future rulers who might dethrone a king, and then there were historically the kings would go and kill everyone of a particular place, on the grounds that they didn't want to be supplanted, right? Among other things, but also there's colonialism and genocide, which has happened. And so Riddick's planet is the victim of just this horrible genocide. And later on, you find out in the Riddick series that he's basically the last surviving Furian, or many believe he is the last surviving Furian. He doesn't even know that he is that. He doesn't really know that what he is for a long time in the series. But part of the reason why and so he's kind of shut in all the Riddick series. He's always a prisoner. He's always somebody. He's always somebody who is being spat on, everyone is afraid of him. Everyone doesn't really want to be around him. Just immediately identifies him as a criminal. It's very important to the Riddick franchise, and the Riddick world and the Riddick lens, which involves getting put into a supermax prison that never sees the light of day, and then finding a doctor that can do a surgical procedure to shine your eyes. That's the Riddick lens. That's actually not how you get his white, opaque, aphotic cave shrimp contact lenses. That's just how his eyes are, because that's how the Furian, some Furians, I think it was the Alpha Furian sometimes have this kind of like white eyes that turns out a certain age, and they have, the Furians, at least the Furians in Pitch Black universe, have this eyesight that is very, very sensitive, so they can see in the dark, but bright light actually really hurts their eyes, and then they get disoriented, right? So if you shine a flashlight into Riddick's face, or if he's out and you take his goggles off in the sunlight, there's one part where they take his goggles off and then he can't see what's happening, and everyone like beats him up. He's very competent at combat outside of that, but when he doesn't have his goggles in daylight, he can't see because he just has extremely sensitive eyes. So that's the Riddick lens. Of course, I'm joking. That what I meant was the perspective on reality and the world, but also that, and so Riddick, but he also has in one sense, he also has a different perspective on reality than a lot of the other people, right? Because as we said, in Pitch Black, you have a lot of the characters, right? Like here are some of the characters, right? You have the let's not even get closer in on that. Okay, I'm not gonna be able to get in on that. So the characters are basically, they're civilian characters. A lot of them are, and Riddick is canonically is definitely a not white character. He's definitely like he's obviously in the world of the cinematic fictional universe, he's Furian, but within the context that we're reading it, he's read as like a not white black person, a criminal because of that. This is 2000, and Vin Diesel, he grew up in the in the not not the richest parts of New York City, right? Let's put it like let's put it that way. And so it involves a lot of experiences that he and people like him and people around him and have gone through. Like Fast and the Furious, his other major movie that came out the next year, 2001, right? It's very similar sort of tone, right? Fast and Furious, right, came out in 2001, after the year after Riddick, and the main characters, you know, they are not the Avengers. You know what I'm saying? That's part. I mean, I know I've made this point like over the last 3 years. I haven't really gone back to it in a while, so that's why I'm kind of coming back to this. But if you know, as I pointed out, if you compare, you know, the Fast and Furious characters, which is led by a universe led by Vin Diesel, versus the Avengers, you start to see some marked differences. You know what I'm saying? Right? So this is the Avengers. Okay? And that's Fast. This is Fast and Furious. Okay, now look very closely at the people, right? Dominic Toretto is somebody who is trying to survive on the streets of LA. He's not a rich family. He's not from a rich family, from a good background. None of his people in his familia are his family, right? They're mostly people of color. Michelle Rodriguez, there are black characters from U.S. and later on there are black characters from the UK and all around the world. There's South American characters. It's a very international movie. There's Asian characters, and so it centers not a white perspective, and also centers not a wealthy, very socially well connected person's perspective, right? It's very much an urban working class slash quote unquote criminal ghetto. What is perceived as criminals? Like there is this whole myth. There is this whole like kind of lie going around in the U.S. that Vin Diesel, he was a criminal and he got out of jail and he's a bad guy. He's a really bad guy and he's really difficult to work with, right? But the thing is, that's just, you know, the characters that he plays in the movies have been criminals. Like Dominic Toretto, technically, right, has stolen cars, is moving vast quantities of DVDs and Fast. In Pitch Black, Riddick starts out in chains. Like he's literally in chains. He is a dangerous criminal who is being brought to justice, and that's the way that the films are like kind of at least initially projecting the characters, because you know this is where like, you know, Vin is much smarter than anybody gives him credit for, right? The movies are actually much smarter than anyone gives them credit for also, right? Similar to just a general, you know, cis heteronormative colonial patriarchal white supremacist Western culture, that's just normal. But it's kind of like the points of the movies are that you think, right, in the beginning of Pitch Black, let me see if I can get that. Riddick in Chains with John. Sorry. In the beginning of the movie, he's introduced as like he has this like internal monologue, right? He has this internal monologue, where he's like he's always in chains, you know. He's always in chains because he's always being shuttled around. Somebody's trying to capture him, put him in prison. He gets out of prison. They try to put him back in prison. There's that one picture where he's being hauled around by the white cop. The black guy being hauled around by the white cop for money. It's perfect. Where it can change? Is it? Maybe it's Butcher's Bay. Shoot, here it is. Yeah. So you know this is actually from one of the games. I've actually played through multiple of these games. So Riddick, and in the beginning of the show, it's very much like this, right? Everyone's like, I don't know about that Riddick. He's a killer. He's a murderer. He's terrible. He's done terrible things. He's a criminal. And people said this about Vin Diesel. They said Vin Diesel's a terrible person. Nobody should watch his movies. That guy is a criminal. He just got out of prison. He's been in prison. You know, it's like all those things that are stereotyped about people of color and people from the poor and people of color generally, and black people especially. And so Riddick is all the Rick universe and Pitch Black as well is playing up on those expectations. Like, oh, so Riddick is the bad guy in this movie. He's just really this bad guy, right? Even though he's narrating, he's talking about like, they should have made better chains. They should have put tighter chains on me. There's a lot of space between here and Alpha Centauri. That's a lot of light years for things to go wrong, right? As they're traveling through hyperspace on their spaceship, and you're like, oh, this must be a really bad guy because people who are poor are bad. People who are poor are bad because they're poor, and they're poor because they're bad. And also, people who are poor are usually black people, and that's bad. And being black is bad because being black makes you bad, and that's why the police have to lock them up all. And remember, Cops was still on TV, which Cops was a TV show which literally spent the majority of its time having mostly white cops. Although now they have more diversity in their slave catchers. Basically chasing down poor people, mostly black and Hispanic, through neighborhoods, like throwing them to the ground with their pants around their ankles, and the cops just throwing them in prison. And Hollywood, LA, TV cameras would just that made so much money for the United States cinema. I call it's ostensibly it's documentaries, but the thing is, all the news, that's all it does all day, is take people who are poor and mostly not white, not from nice neighborhoods, right, and paint them as bad, as criminals, and that's why we need to fund the police more to clean them up and to keep your American children and your American family and your middle-class privileged lifestyle safe from the bad people, right? That's like fundamental to the continued existence of capitalism, imperialism, and the death of the world, actually, is this mythology. And so Riddick's character is about like playing into this U.S. stereotype, right? It's not even a cinematic stereotype. It's just a stereotype that, oh, that's got to be the bad guy because of something about how he looks. He's wearing that tank top. He doesn't look white enough. The other guy looks like John Wayne. The other guy looks like Clint Eastwood. The other guy looks like Harrison Ford. The other guy looks like he looks like the white good guy. He looks like a cop. He looks like the blue-eyed real American guy. Like, he looks like an Avenger. You know what I'm saying? He looks like he's gonna, he looks like Captain America. He looks like Thor. He looks like Robert Downey Jr. He looks like a good guy because he's a white guy and he's got a gun and he has a uniform. He actually, the guy on the right is actually the junkie. He's like constantly stealing stuff. He's actually done much more, in many ways, more terrible things than Riddick has. Riddick has killed people, but it's always basically in self-defense, or somebody who really deserved it, like somebody who, like, I don't know, harms children, like what the United States, its mask off party is accusing trans and drag queens of doing. And so the whole setup of the movie is that you think you're supposed to be rooting for the white blonde hair blue-eyed or the white blue-eyed cowboy. He literally has a cop badge on him, but it's not a real one. Anyway, so I'll get back off of that because then I could talk about that. I could get on that forever. But but during the course of the movie, right, what you find out is that that this character Johns, right, is not everything that he seems, right. He is the guy who's actually doing, if anything, he's the guy who is actually taking. He's a junkie who's taking morphine from people who are like need the morphine and sticking it in himself, right? He's over here. He's like jonesing for another hit. He is constantly lying, right? The police officer, right? It's just right. He's constantly making up stories. He's trying to use information that he gathers from people. Like, so when Fry, right, the character I was talking about, Fry, shoot, where did I put her? When Fry feels guilty about having pulled that switch and chosen to choosing to try to save herself and possibly lose a lot of the passengers, or losing a bunch of the passengers in that process, she tells him, he fishes it out of her, and then he weaponizes that against her, right? He's like, Fry, you should do what I say, because you know that you're just a terrible person. Like he does all the normal gaslighting patriarchal stuff, right? This is a guy who is literally pretending to be a cop, right? So that he can get more power, right? He's a merc. He just does whatever job he needs for money, right? He willfully tries to get a little child killed for his own benefit. He's trying to make money. He's trying to make a lot of money, as a slave catcher for prisons. And to be clear, in the Riddick universe, right? This is part of the Riddick universe, which people don't really credit it for. But I'm trying to find where's here. In the Riddick universe, the prisons. Speaking of the Riddick games, let's look at Butcher's Bay. Butcher's Bay, in the video game Butcher's Bay, in the Riddick universe, there are mines, right, where you become a prisoner in this place. It's one of the places that Riddick gets thrown into, and in this place there are mines, right? And in the mines at Butcher's Bay, guess who does all the work to harvest the very valuable resources from those mines? If you guessed the prisoners, you're correct. And who are the slave masters, the slave drivers, right? Make it in these mines. This is where you have to fight your way out of this. But in these mines, right? Who are the people who are making sure that the slaves, aka prisoners, are working properly in the mines, right? They are the prison guards, right? And so the Riddick universe is again, the Riddick universe, the main character, right? The main character is the prisoner, right? The main character is not the police. The main character is not the good empire with the gun, or the Tomahawk missile and the nukes, right? That's supposed to stop the bad people, right? The socialists. I'm sorry, evil commies around the world. It is not the prison owner. It's not Dog the Bounty Hunter. It's not the cop putting the bad people in the slave, hyper exploitative, ultimate capitalist mode of production that is slavery, which is what the United States still uses. 2.5 million people, disproportionately, the highest prison population, and most of those prisoners are used to put out California wildfires, to mechanically separate Tyson chicken nuggets. They build all the furniture in the White House for 25 cents an hour, like I always bring up. But in the Riddick unit, and so because the United States is a slave capitalist, colonial, place that benefits capitalism, right? And the greatest profit, you get 100% profit when you pay the worker zero, right? It's also called slaves or prison slaves. It doesn't really matter how you gussy it up. What it amounts to economically is you have entire classes of people deemed like not human, right? Because they're poor, or because they're not white, because they're from a certain background, and then you put them in a box. It's called a Corrections Corps of America, or a public or private prison. Doesn't really matter. There's not really any difference between the corporations and the U.S. imperial state. And then you get lots of cheap labor. And so anyway, so now I'm already in my political. It's already quote unquote become political. So let me stick with that for a second though. But so as I said, in the movies, there's 3, hopefully 4. There are at least 2 video games, Butcher's Bay and Dark Athena. And in every one of those, you are always from the perspective of the most oppressed in the universe, in the galaxy, right? That of the people that are literally the enslaved. That is not a common perspective. That is not a common lens. That is not a common narrative and history and science fictional commentary on human history, because everything of science fiction is actually about the moment and the reality in which it is written, as to quote William Gibson, quoting Ursula K. Le Guin. But so that's why that's like the primary thing I wanted to bring that up sooner than later, of why I think Riddick is better than the MCU and any Disney anything, actually. And that's also why I think Riddick, Vin Diesel has had a hard time. I mean, he's played his closest encounter with the flesh eating, infinitely hostile organism, xenomorphic organism that is Disney. Vin Diesel's closest encounter was playing Groot, I think, in Guardians of the Galaxy, but he hasn't done too much with them other than that. Let me just read some comments real fast. The Black Man is the only one not facing the same direction as everyone else. Probably like, yeah, it's like, I'm over this. I'm over this. Like, where y'all going? Anyways, so my point is that it's several points, but one of them is that the vantage point of the Riddick universe matters, because then you get a very different story to what you're usually hearing, just in terms of the entire narrative, just in terms of the entire the entire orientation of everything, right? Like just think of who the Avengers are. I mean, I just talked about Quantumania last time, right? I mean, like Ant-Man is probably one of the least, kind of not so great characters. But I mean, you have a literal Aryan god, Thor. You have literal Captain America, like Captain Imperialism, played by a white guy, Mr. One of the Chris's. Can't remember. They look so similar. I can never keep all these white guys' names together. Chris Evans. You have Robert Downey Jr., billionaire. Elon Musk, literal stand-in. Billionaire, so-called philanthropist, U.S. military-industrial complex arms dealer, playboy, misogynist, openly admitted, and so, like, that vantage point, like, and everything in Avengers, it really is for most of the Avengers, it's from a very Robert Downey's Iron Man's perspective, it's like the biggest problems are, how am I going to, make some more money, keep my girl around. I've Steven Crowder's having problems. That's his problem. How do I, stop being terrible to women so that I can actually have a girlfriend? Of course, then you're saving the universe and all this kind of stuff. But it's like, the vantage point is somebody very powerful, very wealthy, very well positioned as a cis and a white and a man person within a society, within a so-called within the Western civilization. And you have Ant-Man. I mean, War Machine is he is a non-white person, but he's also somebody who's working directly inside and with the United States military. The background doesn't really come up for the most part. He's just kind of like the token black guy who was also there to fight in the Empire, right? And fight to keep and maintain global capitalism and stop the multipolar, non-hegemonic world where countries and capitalist imperial countries dominate global South and a lot of former colonized countries, right? And so that's War Machine's point, is just to kind of be like, the Avengers is not racist. That's basically what it is. Marvel isn't racist. Disney isn't racist. Look, it's like watching an AAPI panel put on, where everyone is just like a sellout, Asian. It's like, look, America loves Asian and Pacific Islanders, even though there's no Pacific Islanders on. Or they have one person who like spent 2 years, one Japanese person who lived for 2 years in Hawaii, and that's the Pacific Islander. I literally have seen that, right? And so the perspective of the entire Disney perspective, I would argue, as I've argued multiple times, and unfortunately the Marvel perspective as part of that, as it comes under that huge umbrella, I would actually argue a lot of the Marvel movies were better before Disney took it over, both in terms of the quality of the writing and the quality of the non just kind of same old rehash of the previous movies, right? And Ant-Man, like I talked about, part of the reason why Ant-Man, was not as good as it could have been, I think, is because it just seems like, I just talked about that last week, is that Disney, like many giant, huge corporations, now we can see why, right? Because they don't care about anything about storytelling, art, movies, cinema, movie making, the human spirit, the human condition, the human pay of their human workers that write, produce, act, do the sets, design the CG, right, to make movies come to life. They don't care about these people. They care about making money, and that's it, right? And that's it. They're run by the most selfish Iron Man-like executives that are actually, Iron Man doesn't exist. There is no billionaire hyper genius person. The billionaires are basically all mediocre, talentless, tiny little emperors. Like we were watching a little bit of The Great. They're all Emperor Peters, completely sub-mediocre, spoiled little brats, just like Catherine's arranged marriage husband to the Tsar of Russia in the movie The Great, the TV show. Sorry, the TV show The Great. And that's very much just throwing tantrums, not really caring about people, fighting needless wars, which he does. Wasting money, abusing people everywhere, treating the the working people like garbage, right? And so the storytelling, actually, I would argue, has gotten markedly worse since like the Marvel universe kind of became a huge central part of Disney, and I would argue the American imperial propaganda arm, right, to make itself look good, especially when the Avengers series, right, when they had this huge, we're going to have 30 movies and it's going to span, we're going to have 20 movies a year, TV series, wall-to-wall Avengers, and billionaires, the United States, and the U.S. military are going to be the savior of the universe. Captain Marvel was like one of the last phases of that, where it's just a giant Air Force and U.S. Navy ad. But it's like, so that is a perspective. Like you cannot, like, everything is political. That is a perspective, and you feel it come through, and then you feel it like drying up as we get to Quantumania, where it's just like I said last time. I'm not gonna recap it all, but it's like sci-fi tunnel. It's another red and blue. It's like purple, and as Holly said, this is like the I mean, Spider-Verse at least had some interesting art style and stuff, but this is like the Thor and the Avengers, and these flashing light tunnels, and the Doctor Strange. We're just going through light tunnel after warp tunnel after quantum tunnel after multiverse tunnel, and then there's like Star Wars cantina bar scene with just generic aliens that happen to, well, these are Star Wars aliens and bar, but they're just quantum Star Wars aliens and bar. It's like, it's very like you could tell that people and writers and artists were like either not treated very well, didn't have a lot of opportunity to actually do their work, were so underpaid and terribly in such bad state or not listened to, that they didn't do their best work. You feel it coming through in Quantumania. The CG looks very expensive, I suppose, but there's not a lot of heart in there. It's very all over the place, right? But that's because of the way those movies are made, but also the spirit, or I would say the sick spirit of Disney and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, unfortunately, as a result. Because Blade, which I thought Blade was really entertaining. It came out 2 years before Pitch Black. Blade was actually the first Marvel movie. I'm sorry, I'm like way off of Riddick right now, but I just want to mention, when is a bad time to mention Blade? Blade is the best Marvel movie. I'm just gonna say it. I was gonna say that. Blade. Blade was actually the first. I believe it was the first Marvel movie Before that, there had been Superman, there had been Batman, but then Blade was what really opened up the door, and I was obviously, it's like, of course you gotta let black people do all the work for your culture. It's actually Wesley Snipes played the vampire hunter who beats up nasty rich, blood sucking and resource sucking class of people. No, I'm not talking about white feudal colonial capitalist descendants. I'm talking about vampires. Or am I talking about colonial capitalist descendants? I'm not sure. Anyways, Blade was one of the first Marvel movies, and it was before Disney really came in, and that engine that came with it really started to push the Marvel universe in a certain direction and in a certain way. I'm not gonna say that every single one of the X-Men, that was the bigger, that was what was pretty big. I mean, at least X-Men, I've also made videos about X-Men, and at least X-Men, the 2000 and 2000s X-Men, it was like touching on the problems of, it touches on bigotry and stereotypes and topics of racism, queerphobia, and a lot of people say like X-Men are just like they're like a found queer family in a lot of ways, which and so X-Men at least like it's not as basic as some things, but it's a main movie, but it wasn't as rah America's the best thing ever, billionaires will save the world, and the United States military is gonna cleanse this planet of evil, which is that's basically the Avengers, So even X-Men, it was the big flagship. It was the flagship. Like some of these characters got spin-off series, right? Like Wolverine had 6-7 movies, right? And Hugh Jackman's like, I'm tired as fuck. I'm just gonna make Deadpool movies now. Ryan Gosling, I'm sorry. Ryan Seacrest, I'm sorry. Ryan Reynolds. Can't keep all the Ryan. You got all these Chris's. You got all these Ryans. You got Ryan Gosling over there. In Barbie. He's copying my face. Like, Ryan, I want 20% of every money you make from Barbie because you copy my silver spoon guy face. Anyways, in the new Barbie shot. Anyways, I'm just many tangential jokes in, but Wolverine's got a spin-off series. Was there anyone else? I think it was mostly Wolverine. I don't think anyone else did, but that was the big Marvel flagship. Was the X-Men in the 2000s, right? Trying to get like a better quality. Was that? Spider-Man. Oh yeah, Spider-Man. Yeah, Spider-Man. Tobey Maguire. Andrew Garfield. He got Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire had multiple movies each playing Spider-Man, right? So, and those are spin-offs from X-Men. And so, it was a little bit, the black and the leather jackets are really in that time. Everyone, this is my style. If you ever seen the Silver Spoon Glams, my personal fashionista, flagship and future rock / hip hop / influencer, slow fashion endeavor that is Silver Spoon Glams. My fashion style trends towards the Matrix, X-Men, and late 90s to noughties rave club attire. A lot of fishnets. I picture Wolverine and Storm wearing fishnets when they go to the club with Donnie Yen from Guillermo del Toro's Hellboy. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I'm sorry, Blade. Guillermo del Toro also did Blade. So there's a lot of very good fashion and a lot of very good, at least better politics in the late 90s to 2000s. And then it's 2008, 9, I don't know what the hell happened there. 2013, 14, 15, everything's all fucked up already. Anyway, I just say you got all this, you got all these hyper making my eyes bleed rainbow colors. I mean, not the rainbow colors are bad. I mean, it's fine. We celebrating Pride Month as queer people as well. But it's like you either got Christopher Nolan DC, Christopher Nolan trying to copy The Matrix and Robert Rodriguez Sin City, and that was the thing about the 20 teens, DC Superman, Super Batman versus Superman, fiasco tragedy that was this unwatchable steaming pile of Zack Snyderian garbage. Remember this? I don't know if you remember this, but anyways, sadly I do. The only thing good that came out of the DC universe in the 2016 20 teens was the first Wonder Woman movie. Okay, I gotta die on that hill. I gotta die with with I'm gonna die with a Vin Diesel blade to my back on that hill. But anyways, no, Batman versus Superman. I mean, my point is that there's a very different vibe when it came to the 20 teens than it was in the late 90s and the 90s in general. Of course, the height of the Avengers Infinity War. That this came out right around the 2018, right? There are two of them, right? And this was the Infinity War was the finale. Really this was the high point, the high water mark of the U.S. Empire. I'm sorry, of the Avengers Empire. Was the it was Infinity War. I mean, I don't think any of the movies since then have come close to grossing what it did. I mean, not to say that that's the only metric, but I mean, it was the summation of all the Chris's, right? Chris Pine. Oh, sorry, not Chris. Chris Pine is the base Pine. That's the only base Chris we have left. All the Chris's have fallen. All the Chris's, all the white boy, blonde hair. I'm gonna be doing Coca-Cola ads for the rest of my life. All the Chris's have fallen. Chris Pratt is just a Pratt. He's just a dick. Literally, that's all he is. And then he's also just somebody who keeps making money being in all the movies, and he keeps on being cringe in all the Jurassic movies, and Holly's like, I don't want to watch any more Jurassic Worlds because this Pratt keeps showing up. Why does he keep showing up? Anyways, so I think it's important to note, you have Chris Hemsworth, you have Chris Evans, you have Chris Pratt, but there's one conspicuously missing Chris from the Marvel Cinematic Avengers Infinity War. There's one conspicuously missing Chris, and you know which one that is? It is the Chris who is continuously showing up on a regular basis to the WGA strikes. That's the base Chris. You know which was the base of anything of the Chris's or the Ryans. Where's Ryan Reynolds? Making the next movie? He's making Deadpool or something? What is he making? He's filming something. Ryan Reynolds, why aren't you with the base Chris? Why aren't you with the base Chris on the WGA striking line? Why are you making movies in the middle of a writer's strike and actors and directors soon to be strike? You should be supporting the people who write the stories that tell that gives you a job at all. What are you doing, right? No, that's why we know it's Chris Pine. That's the only survivor of the Infinity War. No, okay, so we support the WGA strike and the director and actor strikes and paying people what they deserve and not. It's a war, as a writer recently said. A quick little PSA. It is a fight for humanity. As I was saying last time, it's a fight for these huge machine-like soulless corporations with no humanity. Like pretending like that a robot that is just an okay pattern matching, as I said, cliche regurgitator. It's not a storyteller. It's a plagiarism software, right? And it's a credit scrubbing device, AI, writing and art, AI, what they're calling AI. And you have a huge soulless robotic corporation saying that these plagiarism AIs can create the stories and authentic art that is what you people go to movies for, is to, as this writer said, is to be in touch with humanity, to feel like, you know, you're having a shared experience with society that we can talk about afterwards, you know. Like it's something that can't, and it's not coming because they are using these, right? They are using these plagiarism software to pump out soulless movies, increasingly soulless movies and other types of content. And so it does behoove every artist, including actors, including writers, set designers. I mean, game people shouldn't be included. Everyone is threatened by this, right? It's a trend across the certainly the Western capitalist world, the United States, etc., to replace everyone who now some jobs maybe don't need to be done. It could be, you know, benefit from algorithmic text regurgitation, you know, like for example, New York Times writers, they just say the same crap every day, which is imperial lies, right? CEOs' job, what do? They just blow hot air bullshit out of their mouth. AIs can replace CEOs. Actually, there are some companies who have replaced the CEO with AI, but it's not Western companies, in fact. But when it comes to actually creating authentic stories and experiences that move and are relevant to the present, right? Because AI only takes what was done historically and then copies it and makes it slightly different, right? It's a schlock engine. It takes the previous knockoff, you know, vapid, you know, cultural product you have, you know, feeds it in, and then statistically, you know, rehashes it and makes something basically the same but slightly different out. So that's not what people really want to, you know, have when they have a actual movie experience or a TV experience. I mean, I guess some people don't care. They just want to, like, you know, zonk, you know, like just not just have things move in front of their face for a little while and maybe be slightly entertained. But I think that, like, there's something more important when it comes to the art of storytelling. So anyways, I that's just a quick little aside about that. I can't do manis and petties. Yeah, exactly. Somebody said, why do we have this future where I don't want this future where humans are doing all the really hard jobs and grueling jobs, and AI are writing poetry and doing the creative work and art. You know, it's kind of like the opposite of what some people thought would happen. But you know, that's because people didn't play Silver Spoon games like Terminus Machina and Neofeud. Because I'm the only one who knows the future. Everyone else is a bunch of fools. But anyways, I'm just kidding. I'm not literally from the future, although I did come back because I'm John Connor from the year 2076. It's before Cyberpunk 2077 happens. I'm trying to stop that garbage from happening. Anyways, I'm joking, and I'm way off my topic. So Pitch Black though. But this is relevant because all those factors, right? The corporatization, the jingoistic nature of the MCU, certainly, you know, arguably it started earlier, but certainly by the 20-teens, right? The very chauvinistic, you know, Western-centric and very Euro white. Let's be real, it's white dude-centric, right? As Anthony Mackie said, I like to bring this quote up, but Anthony Mackie is somebody who has been in the Marvel, in Disney, in Hollywood for a while as a black guy, and he was selected to be kind of the next token black guy for the Avengers. You know, when they're trying to make Disney look less racist, as if they're not, right? It's kind of like, that's why I don't want Moana remade either, because it makes the U.S. and Disney look like they're not racist, which they are, and colonialist. But you know, Anthony Mackie actually said it. He said it out loud. You know, so kudos to him. I'm trying to get his exact quote. Yeah, Black or White and Captain America 3. So Anthony Mackie actually said, right, Marvel's diversity efforts are in no way enough, and this is a couple years ago. And he actually came out and he said, with Marvel, I really think with most companies. They feel like they're doing what they should be doing, he said, and in no way, shape, or form is it enough. This is in 2020, he said this. The About Marvel's diversity efforts, he plays the high-flying hero Falcon in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He got candid interview. He added, anyone who's big in our industry, the film industry, if they have a party at their house, their party is 98% white. If you go to their office and their office is 98% white, that reflects their reality. So that's basically the point I'm trying to say. Mackie added that being part of the Marvel films has been a huge opportunity that he feels responsible to make sure the Marvel universe is as good as it can be. I mean, he's trying to be like, I'm just trying to help y'all out here, which is fair. But put your money where your mouth is. You can't cast a black dude as one of your main superheroes, and then not expect him to have that conversation. So I mean, we thank him for his candidacy there, which is that if you're going to have, and this is what I was talking about how it's important for not just the people in the front, right? That's an important point, because you see black people or Asian people or non-white people in the front, or queer people or disabled people, etc. That's representation is not necessarily bad. That does help things, but like just seeing Falcon or Anthony Mackie, a black man, as Captain America, right? Like seeing Barack Obama as a black president, right? Seeing Clarence Thomas as a black Supreme Court justice and going, oh, that's so great, that's representation, and now that's means that we've done enough, right? As Anthony Mackie saying, that is no way, shape, or form enough, because the people behind, right, that are writing these stories, right, that are telling these narratives, they're the perspective, right, the lens, right. It is not Furion, it is not Vin Diesel. No, it's not. It is still coming from that vast majority, white and rich, obviously, perspective, and audiences feel that they're like, I can't relate to these characters. I was telling me about just another TV series. I can't remember what it was, but it was like, Holly's like, I have been watching this TV series for a bit, and it was kind of, in the beginning it was somewhat relatable, and now it's just like completely unrelatable. It's just completely unrelatable, because the characters are just like they're basically like rich, very privileged all characters, and I'm like, I don't, and a lot of people are not watching these new shows because that's the kind of perspectives that are being pushed. Those are the kind of those are the perspectives. That's the human reality that the AI can't really do anything about, right? And AI is not going to make your script that is making a movie for people that are Gen Z. They're Gen Z 26-year-olds, and they're millennial 40-year-olds, and they're Gen Alpha 13-year-olds or whoever's watching it, who have a 2023 experience, which is different from a 2010 experience. It's different from a 2000 experience. And people, like, this climate change is exploding. I mean, the economic situation is plummeted compared to 2008-09, right? And even compared to 2016. You have these huge fights. The United States is like very close to having, never mind Avengers Civil War, American Civil Wars. It's very much even more polarized than ever. And people are struggling to eat. The writers who make the movies are struggling to eat. And AI is not going to write a story about writers struggling to eat, because the AI is writing regurgitated rehashes, watered down rehashes of what was already rehashed in 2015. Right? So it's only going to start pumping out more unrelatable, more garbage. And the people that are directing the AIs are talentless, rich kid CEO Nepo owners, not Nepo hires, Nepo owners. They inherit. Seinfeld just came out yesterday and called out Jimmy Fallon on his show, and he said, Jimmy, not that I'm the biggest fan of Seinfeld, but he was like, Seinfeld was like, Jimmy, like, acknowledge it. You have people in your credits of your Jimmy Fallon show who literally have done nothing for this show. They haven't created anything, yet they're in the credits. Why do these people, all they have is they inherited money and ownership stock in companies because they're rich CEO kids. They're all the Hamptons boys. Why do they get to claim they created a show that they had nothing in at all to do with making, as producer, as creator, or whatever, right? And Jimmy's just like, I don't know. I'm just somebody. I'm a puppet for the capitalist parasitic class that's screwing the entire industry that I work in over. I don't know. So like, you know, and so that's where it really is a fight for what, you know, it's a deep fight over like the soul of what is humanity. You know, it's a very science fictional fight. It's a fight that happens in science fictional stories and movies. You know, I've been there many times because I'm like constantly writing and thinking about these things all the time. I make, like I said, I make Neofeud, Terminus Machina. I'm like cyberpunk, sci-fi fan, but it's like this is like it's happening now. It's like it's happening now. AI is not coming alive like Skynet. It's not iRobot. It's not Megan. It's not Data from Star Trek. You know, but it's like but you know that's why I made Terminus Machina, because I thought when I made Terminus Machina, I said, you people, you're looking all at the wrong. Now I'm going to do one more quick shout out from one of my video games where Silver Spook came from, which is Terminus Machina, which is a story about, you know, big tech, big military, big finance, right? DC, Silicon Valley, and Wall Street, allying together and producing, you know, instead of producing anything positive, they're just making buggy paramilitary drones, blowing up their education system. These incompetent elite wrecking the planet with endless financial crises, mass employment as robots shove workers and out of offices into endless bread lines, run out of bread in bankrupt states, and just making a giant planetary mess, right? Not actually having sentient AI. Is not. What if robots take over and kill us all, or maybe we should worship them like Elon Musk wants us to do? But it's like you're having mass unemployment because you're replacing people who could do quality work with not even close to halfway decent, really terrible and plagiarized work, and calling that enough, and calling that satisfactory, because the people that run the AI, the people that run the plagiarism software, these pattern matching algorithms, are the most terrible people. They're the imperialist, capitalist, you know, DC, Wall Street ruling classes of the West. And so that's why I made Terminus Machina, because everyone's wrong and I'm always right, and they're stupid and I'm smart and they should listen to me. Anyways, no, I'm just kidding. You're not stupid, but I did make that. It's fun. I did, in all seriousness, I did make Terminus Machina because I was around singularitarian, transhumanist AI programmers, cognitive scientists. The people Elon Musk listens to, the Nick Bostrom's, Nick Lance, they're all these eugenicist, sci-fi nerd nicks, white supremacist dorks. I don't know what's going on there, but I was just reading an article that the Nick Bostrom, he's like, you know, he made the Matrix simulation argument, but then he's just like a full-on white supremacist, but and so I was like, you guys are not really asking the white question. You're asking the white question. You're not asking the right question. Because their thing was like, how do we worship the AI, or how do we like appease the AI to make sure that it helps me and it doesn't hurt me, and I don't really care about everyone else. But this is because these were cis white, very wealthy and privileged dudes going to Oxford, Yale, Stanford. People like Mr. Ray Kurzweil, right? These are rich Silicon Valley, Wall Street, Londonite, imperial colonial white boys, thinking only of themselves in a very narrow lens, not thinking actually about reality. And that's why I made Terminus Machina, because it was like part of the reason why I was like, I'm an underpaid Native Hawaiian under U.S. colonial occupation social worker and STEM teacher, and I was thinking about getting a degree from a Californian, San Diego or Berkeley in cognitive computing and neuroscience and artificial intelligence, and then I was like, you guys are all really nasty. I couldn't really pinpoint it, but now I know what it is. But it's like, you just are colonial capitalist, white boy descended Reddit nerd shitheads. That's all you are, and the more as time goes by, that's all you're proving yourself to be. Even fucking John Carmack, one of the programmers for Doom, I'm like, it makes me sad, man. Like, all you nerd game and AI and tech programmers, you guys are just a bunch of nasty people, man. That's so sad. It's so sad for you, because I mean, I'm, you know, just trying to be based over here. Anyways, anyways, but I'm off of my Riddick. Let's come back to Riddick. Okay, so Pitch Black and so let's just kind of get through Pitch Black. So that's the thing that's really positive about Pitch Black, which was the first in this series of movies and then games and etc. Right? This is Butcher's Bay. I recommend if you play video games, I recommend Butcher's Bay. Try Dark Athena and tell me how it is because I haven't played it yet. I gotta get to playing. I'm really bad at actually playing and games. I watch a lot of shows, but I just I don't have the time. I don't feel like I have the mental and times. I don't have the spoons, mental energy, and time allotments to imbibe 10, 20, 50 hours of universe playtime and lore to get into these big ass games. You know what I'm saying? I look at one. I'm like, oh, it's gonna take me like 30 hours. I'm like, oh, I gotta finish Neofeud 2. I gotta like do taxes stuff. I gotta like parent children and stop the U.S. illegal occupation and genocide in Hawaii. Oh god, I don't have time to fucking get in your shit. That's what it is. It's just kind of like it's just like it's probably like being 40. It's just being like, oh man, I got so many other universes in my head. I can't fit another one. I'm like, low RAM. Speaking of AI and robots, I got low hard drive space. You have to free up additional megabytes and exabytes by recycling some of this other stuff. And I'm like, but I want to keep my Riddick. I don't want to replace that with something that I don't even know if it's that good. I want to keep my Alien in there. I don't want to replace it with something that I don't know what this is. I know that one was good. So it's also like I don't want to waste my time watching something that I don't know if it's gonna be good, or playing something I don't know if it's gonna be good, or listening to something like a podcast. I'm like, wait, what if it's an AI generated what if it's an AI generated chat GP podcast, which is literally a thing of Joe Rogan. What if it's AI Joe Rogan talking to AI generated Jordan Peterson? That's just it's not an AI Joe Rogan. It's just a regurgitation of a copycat of what Joe Rogan has already said, but slightly different in his voice using a vocal synthesizer, right? It's AI. It's not really AI. It's just like it's plagiarism software is what it is, literally. And that's useful if you just want to be a fraudster. Oh, one more thing. I know I'm way off again, but OpenAI's CEO, right? Which is, how open is it when you have a freaking CEO making tons of money working with these mega corporations to steal the entire work of the entire human race, right? But Sam Altman literally came out and said that OpenAI does not work if they cannot steal other people's work. He literally said that. He just admitted AI is just plagiarism software. It's copyright theft. It's creative work theft software. It's literally like AI big eye. I've been saying this for so many streams, and Sam Altman of OpenAI, he came out and he said it. He just said it. This is what he said. OpenAI states it will need to cease operating if people expect it to follow basic ethical guidelines. Now, he didn't say it exactly like that because that doesn't sound good in legalese, but cease operating if in the EU, if it cannot comply with the future regulation. EU is finalizing new AI regulations, but OpenAI CEO says he has many concerns about the law. The EU AI Act will require the company to disclose the details of its training methods and data sources. And he said if he basically danced around it, right? But he said, where did he say? Yeah. He basically said that if we cannot take work and we have to disclose where our sources came from and how the AI got to its final product, we can't operate. Right? Yeah, he said if we have to share the information about the copyrighted data that we used, OpenAI will not be commercially viable. So basically, you have to steal other people's work. You're not, that's what you're doing. So I think that I just want to say that I also feel vindicated in that this is a garbage person, and the industry is full of garbage people. So, because it's like if you cannot operate your AI without stealing other people's work, right? Then you don't have an AI, right? What you have is copyright theft, right? Because they say that one of the claims is like, well, the AI is generating completely new, unique, and original works that are completely separate from the original work. But if it is so completely separate, then you should be able to prove that. You should be able to prove that somehow. But the thing is, they cannot, because that's not what it's doing. What it's doing is intentionally trying to, especially they're trying to duplicate specific artists and specific writers, styles and specific, signature themes and their secret sauces, and their because that's what makes those valuable. It's just literally trying to duplicate actual human creators' work, and they've admitted it. So I just want to say that. Anyway, I'll stop saying that. I'm done my AI sidebar. Okay, I promise. Back to Riddick. So Pitch Black's so in Riddick, I know I keep doing this. I'm like not getting through my thing. Let me just close some of my tabs, that way I'll finally come back to the point. So back to the actual movie we're supposed to be talking about. So Pitch Black, the slave driver, right? That is the slave driver that is the John's character, right? Who has caught Riddick. Let me second. John's, Riddick, Pitch Black. This character, he is selling himself, as I said, off as this good guy. He's the good guy. I'm the good guy here. I catch the bad people. I'm a cop. Look at my cop badge. I'm a good guy. I have the gun. And Riddick is a criminal, because just look at him. I mean, look at his face. Look at his face shape. Just look at him. It's basically what it is. And also, of course, well, he's killed this person and he's done these things. You learn more about Riddick's actual history, right? Later on, but so yeah, you learn more. This is a good shot because it just kind of it communicates a lot of what I'm trying to talk about in one picture. But then over the course of the movie, Riddick saves a lot of people. There's one point in the movie in which somebody disappears, right? This guy who has it in his head, because everyone has just said Riddick's terrible, Riddick's bad, Riddick is a murderer, Riddick will kill you as soon as look at you, because that's what Johns keeps saying, that he's a really terrible guy. If you are alone here without me, Riddick will kill you. Riddick will kill all of you. So you better just do what I say, right? It's like the same propaganda that the U.S. puts out, the capitalist U.S. and the wealthy put out about poor people, people of color. Without the police, the poor people in the ghettos are going to come through your suburbs. They're going to kill you the second that they can. All those poor black people, they're coming for you. So you need more money for LAPD. You need an $850 billion police budget. You need more money. And when in reality, what is the capitalists are the biggest criminals, the landlords and these people who have all these ill-gotten gains, like the Disney CEOs and the CEOs of all the entertainment corporations. And they need to keep paying the police to put down people who are not getting their basic needs met because of the parasitic capitalist bourgeois structure of U.S. society and Western society generally, to beat up the people who are not going to work, who are not making enough money going to work to get thrown out of the apartments, for the landlord capitalist parasitic class that makes money overcharging you for just basic living space, which should be a human right, like it is in some countries that are not capitalist, like Cuba, and with a threat of violent eviction by police, by cops, if you don't go to work to make the money to pay your landlord, and also give 30% of your labor value to your corporate lord at the capitalist business you work at, whether that's McDonald's or Disney, and then give another 30% of your labor value to your landlord, your housing lord, and then give 30% to your student debt lord, and give another, and all your credit card debt lord, and all the other banking and corporate lords that you have to pay money to for the crime of not being born wealthy and having tons of money. And so that's the real reason. And so pushing blame onto people of color, oh, black and Hispanics, and they're sending the worst people from the south of the border. Those Muslims, they're all coming for us to get us, and they're all the worst people. They're terrorists, they're killers, and there's this, there's a 7-country Muslim ban, and we need more police to stop those poor people. This crime is up, crime is up. Every time you turn on any corporate news, right, in the West, what do you find? In the U.S. especially, crime is up, crime wave. We have to fund the police. There's a very it's so everyday. It's like breathing air. That's how ubiquitous this stuff is. And so. And most movies, they do a really terrible job, if they care at all, which they usually don't, about drawing any attention to that, right? It's very important that the main character is Riddick, and Vin has real experiences with this, with the police, with the prison system, and his family. Well, not he went to prison, but he has been raised in a place, New York City, which is full of a very terrible, very pro-capitalist, very anti, very racially targeting police department, the New York Police Department. New York is basically the capital of capitalism, as the capital of the United States, which is one of the most exorbitant. It's the oldest money in the United States in many ways, and it has some of the most harshest police. So the New York City Police Department has, by dollar amounts, the third largest military on the earth. Most people don't even realize that. If it was a military, the New York City Police Department is the United States and then China, the two biggest militaries, and then it's the New York City Police is the New York Police Department. That's how unhingedly, ridiculously terrible that is. And it's not a mistake that it's the liberal media that is constantly pumping out. It's not even the conservative media necessarily. They do it too, but the liberal media, they really need their police to keep beating up on the poor and the working class and unions, breaking the legs of people when there's a union strike, throwing people on the ground, throwing them out of their houses, right, and maintaining a racist capitalist structure, and then keeping people, keeping the population afraid of and constantly turning to and supporting their police, right? Even though the police statistically they commit more crimes than the average person, they literally solve less than one felony per year. They I think it's like what was I forget the exact statistic, but it's like 3 out of 5 women have literally been assaulted or raped by a New York City police officer in New York City. It's just like they actually perpetuate crime under a racist capitalist system like the United States has. And so and like over 50% of all of TV shows that are ever made in the United States are pro-cop with main character police shows, like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, cops, Gillian Murphy, David Duchovny, X-Files, FBI are cops. Everything, almost everything is some kind of cop show. So when you turn on your Netflix, when you turn on your show, when you turn on your content streaming platforms, a lot of times you just cop show, because that's just what the capitalist system needs to constantly be propagandizing you to maintain itself. In large part, it needs people, the masses of the people, to believe that is who has their back. That's why the mutual aid stuff and we protect we and this kind of stuff. And again, I want to be careful. It is under a system that is premised upon that is for a racist plutocracy, a colonialist and imperialist plutocracy. That is the way that the law enforcement operates. Because there are ways of enforcing rules under Hawaiian society and indigenous society, many different methods. That you could say that they were enforcement of laws, but the laws that are being enforced are not enforced for the benefit of the very wealthy people of a particular colors and identities, to the detriment and subjugation of everyone else, right? So that's also important to point out. And it's just because Silver Spooker, you're saying that all the cops are bad. Well, I mean, I haven't met I don't go to New York a lot because it's disgusting, but and falling apart and way too freaking expensive. But like if if you joined in to that force and you thought you were gonna be a good person, you're gonna save people and help people out, then you know maybe you have to look more closely at what you're doing and maybe think about not being in that. I certainly would say don't be in the U.S. military for many, many reasons, including that it's the number one force of destruction and genocide and ongoing maintenance of capitalism and colonialism, and also it's a rape of people, including in Hawaii. 15-year-old Native Hawaiian women, girls are repeatedly the number one most likely to be human trafficked and raped by a U.S. military soldier, a male U.S. military soldier. So similarly for police and military, of an empire, of a capitalist white supremacist empire like the United States, it applies that the enforcers of that are going to be similarly doing more harm than good, just in general. Anyways, so that's a reality. That's really why Riddick, the universe, is far more important, really, than the MCU. Whether you think the movies are as entertaining or not, I mean, this, you can. I don't like that plot. I don't think that the scientific, atmospheric, the oxygen to nitrogen ratios on planet Furia are would survive the extreme, the extreme scrutiny of a modern, a modern what do you call that? What would be the scientist that studies that? A modern not a modern geographist, but you know what I'm saying. I don't think that the science is as solid, or I don't like Vin Diesel's acting. The script, something had a plot hole. And if you don't like it, the reality is, I think that most of these movies, there's some movies that are not watchable, and those are the Zack Snyder movies. For reasons, Christopher Nolan. Now that I think about it, like the more I hear about this guy and the fact that he made Inception have inaudible dialogue is just incredibly, like, you pretentious freaking prick. Anyways, but the point is that, like, what the movie is trying to draw attention to and trying to actually say, that's the thing. Like, an AI could not write Riddick. An AI couldn't write Pitch Black, right? Because if an AI, right, was taking all the science fiction movies up until that point, right? If an AI was taking all the movies up until the point, an AI could, an AI, I mean, I love Alien, I love Aliens, these are good movies. But if an AI took Alien, right, and then it said, okay, make a horror sci-fi movie, the AI could pump out, okay, here's another movie where there's like, maybe there's like a insectile alien, insectile alien that's red and it has venomous teeth, and there could be one-liners from a Ripley-like character, except her name is like, Wrigley instead of Ripley, or Dimply, right? But Alien is a very important movie that does have many important things to say about corporations and artificial intelligence and the dangers of neoliberalism. Actually, really, corporations running everything and throwing their employees under the bus, making them get infected with extremely hostile xenomorphic creatures that lay their young in eggs down your throat, and then your torso explodes and you die. That's very scary and horrible. Fun fact though, did you know that in Alien, just something I learned from Holly, Holly was going through this threads about the production of movies. The alien from Aliens being laid down your throat. Did you know that this actually wasn't the fact that the face huggers, these like this creature that is made up of two, spindly pairs of hands with a scorpion tail coming off of it, and a urethral like proboscis that literally has sex with your face, non-consensually, with its tail boa constricting your neck, and it shoves its young down your throat, and then it causes your torso to explode. Did you know that whole thing was just one of the that very horrible, that's like central to the horror of Alien, the body horror, and like it's like one of the it just make it always just makes the lore of Alien in so many ways. That was just one of the people working on Alien. It wasn't Ridley Scott or the director. Just like woke up and was like, oh, I've got it. The alien just woke up one day, like had like a bad dream and said, oh, I know. The alien will like have sex with your face. It'll fuck your face. And that was just a random thing that one of the people working on the movie, again, right? It's very important. The way that movies are made and letting people like be their full creative selves, right? And not just have some AI rehash some previous stolen work. It was just probably somebody working on the movie came up with that idea, and then it later on got incorporated into the film. But now you think of it as like central to Alien, right? But that actually was just a random night terror / or dream thought that somebody had, and they woke up and they threw it out there. They just threw it out there in the writer's room, you know. They threw it out there in the during the production. But my point is that like if you took Alien as good as it is, and then you just had it rehash, make another sci-fi horror, it would never come to the point of making Riddick, because Riddick and Pitch Black were not movies that had existed. There wasn't really a movie that existed that explored this angle, and it has to. And Vin Diesel's experience, right? His personal experiences, along with the writers, of course, have a lot to do with why this movie is the way that it is. Because Vin Diesel, like I said, right, went through the problems of being, you know, a person from not a wealthy family in New York City, right, from the slummy areas of New York, undergoing racist policing, seeing police brutality happening, right, seeing friends and people he knew going to prison for no reason, right, in the United States, you know, he played a lot of D&D, and you know, so it's got a lot of science fiction adventure characteristics. A lot of his movies do, including Fast 10. Somebody says Fast 10 is one of the best and longest running D&D campaigns I've ever seen. Fast and Furious, but and so that all of that, those experiences of Vin's, right, of his early life, right, informs the creation of the Riddick universe and the way that Riddick is as a character, right. You know, he's born specifically he was born in California, but he actually moved to New York City, and so he spent a lot of time there as well. And you know, back and forth between Cali and New York. And he had an adoptive African. So his dad was actually adoptive African American, and an acting instructor and theater manager. And you know, he's always acknowledged his ambiguous ethnicity. Anyway, and so you know, like, so, but those experiences are like formative, and those are the things that go into the. My point is that's what's going into making this movie, and that's both. That's like why it's important to have people that are like from, you know, the marginalized identities being able to tell the stories so that people can see more clearly the society that they're living in, right? Rather than, you know, again, rather than having people of the most privileged identities, right, telling stories that perpetuate the injustices. Like one of the major problems of the United States, or if not the problem, is its incredibly unjust system and the complete blindness that a lot of people have to their own injustices internationally. At the highest level, it's the most important one. But even inside the United States, if you're listening to the same perspective, or listening to AI plagiarism software's regurgitations of the same perspective, you're never going to get the important stories, important perspectives that you need to make those changes, right? Or to even accurately describe your society. When you listen to the most powerful, privileged, and spoiled, and mediocre people in the society's perspective over and over and over and over, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, in the Disney and mainstream Hollywood world, right? You're going to get lies after lies after lies after lies, because they have no interest in changing the system that's unjust, that benefits them. And so that is a Ouroboros of empire shitting into its own mouth death spiral. You know, it's kind of why is the U.S. in this place? or is trying to make these imperialist wars where it is like literally has its own children, 11-year-olds going back to work. It can't even figure out that this is terrible. Why does it continue? It thinks it has a democracy, yet there are two parties that's part of a one-party plutocratic imperial ruling state that is throwing their own people under the bus. Why are people in the United States so propagandized? Why are people so like just disinformed? I just had a whole thread that everyone's like, I had no idea about what is a Hawaiian pizza. I'm like, yeah, it's because there's not a lot of people getting informed. Like, well, if you keep listening to people in an unjust system that is premised upon mass lying, because it's unjust to people about how it functions, right? Which is the police don't protect you, the U.S. military doesn't save the world, right? And capitalism isn't the greatest thing. If you keep listening to that perspective, you're going to keep getting the false information that is causing you to spiral further and further. You know, it's like, oh my God, I'm on fire. Let's throw some liquid on it, and you throw gasoline, right? And so anyway, okay, so that's yeah. Anyway, and so somebody comes to shoot Vin Diesel's Riddick, right, at one point, and he's looking around. What is it? There's a scene where he's pitch black. There's a scene where this guy is like looking for Riddick, and he finds this hole. Yeah, in this hole, yeah. Yeah, it's in pitch black where they're like they think Riddick has snuck into this hole, and like while they're sticking their head in this hole, not her but this other guy, and they're like, Riddick, where are you? I'm gonna kill you, right? And this guy, these other people, right? They already have been convinced by the cop white man that Riddick is a terrible guy and he's gonna kill them at any second, right? And they like accidentally shoot one of their own people because they think he's Riddick, right? So this is actually a good example, right? Where people, the American population, thinking that they're gonna save themselves by fighting the bad guy, by funding the police to get them saved from the bad guy, right? They think they're gonna like, well, if we just or we just vote for this Democrat, we're going to be saved from the bad Republicans. Actually, they're going to end up doing exactly the same thing, and sometimes even worse, right? They end up at one point in Pitch Black shooting themselves, and they one of their own kills another one of them because he just had a shaved head, and he's like a bigger guy, and they're like, oh, that must be a criminal, right? Just recently, I just read there's a story where a cop shot another. A guy came out and he said, I really hate cops, and he said, I'm going to kill cops, and this guy came out somewhere in the U.S. state, and a pro-cop vigilante shot that guy who said he's like the anti-cop guy, and the police showed up, and then not even thinking, because right, they shot the guy who shot the anti-cop guy. They shot the hero. Though the hero guy was not that's like he just came. Oh, number one, he's just coming out and killing people. That's probably not the best thing to be doing. But also, he's like he did it because he loves the U.S. police, and the police came and shot that guy. I forget what that story was, but it was like amazing. But that's the kind of both incompetence and like incredible disarray that it's kind of emblematic of the incompetence, malice. It's the kakistocracy of the United States, which is both simultaneously amazingly inept at maintaining its racist capitalist empire. It's falling apart, de-dollarizing. Inside, everything is falling apart. You're spiraling close to balkanizing, as I already kind of elucidated, and then also simultaneous at the same time, terribly malicious as well, right? It's like, I kill people because I love the slave catching police force, the racist policing that beats everyone up and commits more crime and does more murdering and does more rape and harassment than the average citizen. So it's kind of like, so in Riddick, that's kind of a theme where it's like people are trying to get the bad guy. They're trying to get the Riddick when they're like literally there is the white guy police officer, but he looks like Captain America. Right? It's like argument from strong jaw, blonde hair, blue eyes. I must be good because look what I look like, right? And Hollywood is cinematic eugenics. It has been for a long time in many ways. Which is why representation isn't nothing. But it's kind of like if they had not been just constantly trying to get Riddick, right? if they had not been looking at him and going, well, look, Riddick, he's got weird eyes, he's got weird head, he looks kind of like he might be black, and that means he's probably a criminal, right? They're judging him in that way. The whole conversation about the over policing stuff, there's none of that. Twitter didn't exist when this movie came out. This is 2000, you know. This is the height of the U.S. empire, you know, in many senses. In the 90s, it was like unchallenged, hegemonic. There was no China rival. Russia was, falling apart in a lot of ways, and the U.S. was like, we're gonna rule this world. There wasn't this conversation about there really wasn't a conversation about defunding the deep systemic racism problems. I mean, some of these shows were trying to talk about it, but it wasn't really on a lot of people's minds to the mainstream's mind. Now, I'm not saying that everyone is on board with it, but I mean, that's a discussion that's more being had. And so now, of course, I mean, for people of color, for black people in those communities, that's always been a problem that, as another person of color, Hawaiians are the most incarcerated of all ethnicities per capita. That's always been on our minds. But in the wider Western conversation, that's not. So when everyone is just like, oh, he must be a criminal because look at him, right? They are actually hurting themselves, because there are very dangerous creatures, right? There are very dangerous creatures. There are real dangerous creatures on the planet that they've landed on, right? There is a real, very dangerous guy. There's a real dangerous human, right? But the real dangerous human is the white guy with the blue eyes. It's like, for example, right? Like you have 8,000 disproportionately white Catholic priests, and like right behind that is Protestant Protestant Christian straight cis white men committing the vast majority of child abuse and child sexual abuse, right? This guy came out and he said, God will judge. We should not worry about what we know what offends the wokeists. We know what offends you, but we should be concerned about what offends God. He's saying that we have to be godly, and that's what matters. We have to protect children. And he just got convicted of raping like 7 and 8 year old children, right? And so that the child abuse narrative, right? It's right, all the DeSantis worshippers and everyone like that. That's like, we have to get rid of drag queens and LGBTQ plus people. It's coming up to Pride Month, etc. That are like, those are the biggest abusers, right? But like everything else, the capitalists going, the biggest problem is poor people, and all those people of color that are also poor people, and we need the police to beat them up, right? And all the Christian cis white guys going, the biggest problem is all of these queer people that are going to groom your children. It's actually children, like, by reading a lot of these stories that are written by queer people, they learn about what consent is, they learn about what child abuse is, and then judges of the United States have actually acknowledged that, like, when children read a lot of these books by queer authors that involve what is consent and learning about their body and sex ed, the U.S. judges have actually acknowledged that, like, that book actually saved that child from an abusive situation. So it's actually, by the nature, more drag queen story times and more like children learning from queer individuals and drag queens, which is not the same thing as a sex show, but that's always synonymous, but in a lot of Western cis hetero culture. But that actually would like, statistically, even according to the U.S. government, which is not the most angelic institution in the world, they said that actually will decrease child abuse. Anyway, so and less exposure to cis hetero, like cis straight culture is actually the aberration and the danger here, and cis straight white guys in particular, statistically, empirically, by the numbers, the most dangerous people, right? So similarly, that's the point in Riddick. I mean, it's not about queer versus straight, but it's like the people who look like this and who are, of this identity, right, that has been marginalized. Those people must be the biggest danger. But in Riddick, right, it's not Riddick, right? It's not Riddick. It's actually the white cop. It's not the black poor guy. It's actually the white upper middle class guy that you have to worry about. He's literally the worst. Like, by the end of the movie, you realize, oh my God, this guy like was gonna throw a child under the bus and like sacrifice a child to save himself and make more money. Like literally, that's what he was gonna do. And all the time, that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to figure out the best scheme to lie to everyone around him and manipulate everyone around him, including the women, especially the women. That's like very important. Like there's a white lady and he's all like, he's like Steven Crowder. He's like, do your wifely duties. Do your wifely duties. He's like constantly like gaslighting her about like, you're bad. You're terrible. You're Eve. Your sins. All the problems of the world come from you, woman. To put himself in a higher position of power, to try to manipulate the situation, right? Make himself seem better than everyone else around him, right? And like he's gonna save everyone when he's an incompetent, actually criminal drug addict. Like you all black people, you're all on drugs, and that's why I gotta take you off to prison with a plant some marijuana on your body. I mean, this is just, right. It's like all that stuff like actually is played out if you look closely in Riddick, right? And by the end, you realize, oh my god, that guy is a terrible lying piece of crap. It's kind of like when only like 10, 20 years later, you find out, oh my god, that pastor was he was a pedophile. He was a pedophile. He was actually gay too, and he was the most homophobic person. Oh, he was talking about be good, let us be godlike and Jesus-like, and he's the one that is like being absolutely terrible and like cheating on his wife, having all these sex with all these very young people, some of them in the congregation, right? And so like anyway, and so that's like underscoring the entire movie. That's not what the movie is about, but that's not what matters, right? What matters is what is the overarching narrative, the meta narrative, the what viewpoint on things is this movie communicating? Well, it's just a horror movie. It's just a final girl story. Pitch Black is. But when you look more closely, and I haven't even got to the Muslim stuff. That's another huge, very important topic, and it's already 1:13. So I'm going to quickly go through that. But importantly, one of the most sympathetic characters in Pitch Black and in the Riddick universe is the Imam. I think it was called the Mystic because the U.S. is anti-Muslim and racist against West Asian people and brown people generally. But the Imam is a Muslim person who is one of the most sympathetic characters. Let's see if I can get a picture of the Imam. Here. So the Imam is there in. He is on a spiritual quest. He's on a pilgrimage. Let me see if I can find him. Imam in Riddick. Abu al-Walid is a Muslim Imam. 3 young acolytes, Suleiman, Hassan, and Ali. Not to be confused with the multi-million follower streamer on Twitch. He was on Hajj from the... It also brings up actual Muslim practices, right? He's on Hajj. Is a type of religious pilgrimage in the Muslim faith. From the Tangier system to his home in New Mecca on Helion Prime. Also, like the more you learn about Helion Prime and New Mecca, the entire Riddick universe is just like infinitely more braced than any Star Wars or other Disney IP like the Marvel Cinematic Universe could ever hope to be. The more you look into this stuff, but most people don't. You just kind of watch the movies and you see Carl Urban's in one of them. And you're like, oh my god, Carl Urban, is he gonna not take his mask off again like a weird nerd? No, I'm just kidding. Anyways, back to Imam. Helion Prime, Imam and his acolytes unfortunately took an ill-fated transport ship. That's the ship that crashes, right? And he and his acolytes remained faithful to their religion, but when the planet was locked in a total eclipse, the bioraptors of the planet, that's what they're called, bioraptors, began to kill his acolytes one by one, testing his religious faith. Richard B. Riddick had no small part in the test, and he toyed with the Imam during a crisis of faith, but Imam soon became one of the few people who could be called something of a friend to Riddick. So, the Imam character he's on a pilgrimage, right? In space, because this is very important actually. People of color, black people, and Asian people, and even their faiths survive into the future. That's part of like what sometimes people is called African futurism and others. But it's like there is not now. I think it's less common among younger generations. But I mean, there was a point where it's like, why is the future always so Euroid? And so Riddick was in a 2000. This was a to have an entire multi-faith civilization, Helion Prime, and to have lots of very positive, speaking of representation, very positively represented black people and Muslims in a film, in a Hollywood film, that was a really ahead of its time. I just want to say that this and Riddick, the Iraq War, Chronicles of Riddick came out during the Iraq War, and it's even more. It is even more generous to Muslims and people from what's called the Middle East, in a time when the most hyper Islamophobia was rampant in the U.S. in the the War on Terror, Iraq War, extreme anti-Muslim mania time, which was the noughties. If you're millennial or older, you remember this clearly. Some younger people, you might not remember it, but this was a time where that was what the empire was pumping out, because it needed people, right, to go to. Similarly, why they pump out constantly pro-cop, anti-poor, and racist crap is because of the same reason why they, inside their country for their own policing, they also pumped out so much anti-Muslim, anti-Islamic stuff, because they're trying to make all of these wars for imperial capitalism and plunder. Anyway, so Imam's being a main character, being a very important character, and being a very positive character, was very important. It's a very important statement and bold move by the Riddick creators in this time that it was made. And I think Holly has a thread linked to a Muslim who actually kind of said that, basically I thought it's like, I think they're like a younger Muslim. They might have been child or very young at the time. And he said, I just popped on this movie called Pitch Black because I wanted to watch some silly action movie. And oh my God, I didn't realize how amazingly positive this is for, as a Muslim person. They're watching it in 2023. They're going it's amazing that this movie from 2000 was so progressive and so ahead of its time when it came to representation of Muslims, and how it actually had Muslims on Hajj, and they're actually practicing their faith, not just demonized, And Keith David, I think, at least for some time, and maybe still is, was a black person, and he practiced Islam, if I'm not mistaken. Pretty sure he did. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. I can't remember if actors, which ones are still alive and where they are in their life exactly. I am not an IMDb editor, so I don't know that. So he said. So Big Teal says Muslim futurism. Yeah. So anyways, let me get back to the Imam in Riddick. And so he does really in many scenes, he really challenges. It was a real challenge to having this character. Was a real challenge to the white supremacist narrative and the Eurocentric narrative, which is that the only positive people, the only good people are the good guys with the gun, and the good guys are the white guys with the gun. Right? It was a movie that was very much maybe the people that are of moral not to say that you have to be a religious leader to be upstanding, but the character, he does have his he is not flawless. He's very, very zealous in his faith in some ways, and then Riddick kind of calls him out on some of that. But he does authentically care about the young Muslim that are coming with him on the Hajj, on the spiritual journey. He's one of the people that Riddick, who has suffered as a prisoner since he was born, with his umbilical cord wrapped around his neck, thrown into a dumpster, or born after a genocide on his planet, and then being cast into, I think Riddick was in the military just to survive, and then discovered the military were killing innocent people and doing torture and using slave labor and doing other terrible things. And Riddick turned against his own commanding officer and killed him, and then went to prison for it. The rest of his unit got out, but he went to prison, because they refused. They didn't go along with the plan to kill their horrible commanding officer, and so he went to prison, and then he spent his rest of his entire existence in prison. So Riddick has actually like only ever tried to survive, but has been kind of been turned cynical against humanity because of many terrible experiences. Right? I mean, as a Furion, he's of a different people. So he has very negative outlooks because of constantly being let down, constantly being lied to and abused, and he a lot of the show is about Riddick. In the Riddick character, the Pitch Black is about meeting characters like Imam who are actually not absolutely terrible. Riddick is basically like everyone's terrible, and in the end, everyone will turn on you. It's everyone. It's a human eat human world, and everyone's gonna backstab you, and so Imam and actually the character Fry, the co-pilot, do at least do authentically care about other people. Riddick actually tests both of them at one point or another, and he's like, Fry, get on this ship and let's get out of here. Never mind the rest of the people that we're coming with. Let them die on this planet. We risk losing our lives if we don't just fly off this planet right now. And so Fry has to make this choice. And when Fry, the girl on the left, chooses not to, right? She goes, no, we have to go back and save those people. I will die for those people, right? Then Riddick, he's interesting, because he's never experienced, right, people that actually don't. He's never experienced people that don't only think selfishly in a capitalistic Western sense. Let's put it that way. It's kind of like being born into the U.S. capitalist, racist, selfish, individualistic, lying-based Western world. You might kind of assume that such a thing, right? That, well, everyone's just bad, so I'm just gonna survive. But it's kind of like, it's almost like that. At that point, it's like learning, well, maybe there's something else to humanity, and maybe I'm just around a lot of the really not so good humans I've been around. Maybe most of the people I've been around, like the military, like the prisons, and their horrible prison guards and wardens, maybe like the police and the fake police bounty hunters that are working for the imperial slave-driving capitalist empires. Maybe the people I've been around are just the worst people. Maybe there are, because when you think about it, right? When Riddick is on that passenger ship, he's being moved from a prison to another prison. He's being transported as a prisoner. He's never been in any situation except genocide under colonialism, fighting needless imperial wars, right? Prison, chased by cops, and then more prisons. So he doesn't have any other experiences except these really terrible experiences. So when he meets the Imam, he's like, oh, hey, now, it's like it's the black Muslim guy that's like, oh, this guy might actually be somebody who isn't terrible. And the white cop guy turns out to be the worst. And then the pilot, it's very important that I think that they're saying something, that it's a woman and it's a black Muslim person, that are the people that have redeeming qualities. That maybe Riddick starts to think, have second thoughts, that was a choice, that's not the choice. That is not the choice of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that is not the choice of the Avengers, the choice of the Avengers is to choose to make being a super rich white plagiarist, period, of other people's work, and also plagiarist software beneficiary like Iron Man, is a choice to make him heroic, right? And the most empathetic, the most self-sacrificing. When Robert Downey goes to self-sacrifice and fly into to blow himself up for the good of humanity, like something like he's freaking Jesus or something, right? Jesus was a brown guy under colonization, and then he got crucified. Son, sit down, rich white billionaire, descendant of the Romans. So it chooses to put other people in the front, right? And then there's token black guy, and then there's token women. There's a token Russian. The Russians are good when they become American capitalist racists. I'm sorry. We just, the West is just better than everyone else, right? Just like Borrell said at the EU, right? women and black people and other people, they become good when they join America. That's what makes them good, right? But they have the rest of the world, the non-white world, Asia, Africa, the indigenous people. You can get some redeeming quality. You can redeem yourself when you join the great U.S. crystal fascist empire, right? The it's like that's a lens, right? Whereas like in Riddick, right, it's like you don't really see the face of the empire in Pitch Black, but you do you do see it in Riddick, Chronicles of Riddick, certainly, right? The empire has has no redeeming qualities inside of it. The people, the redemption for the entire, like, they don't really say it, but the redemption for the West is in fact the marginalized people standing up for what is right in the face of all of the injustice in their U.S. West capitalist imperialist so-called rules-based order. And that's what convinces Riddick, oh, maybe, because Riddick, he's kind of like just kind of in between. He's not necessarily bad. He's just like somebody who has suffered a lot. But he's kind of convinced by the other people that are like, there is hope, but we have to we have to we have to it's difficult and we have to fight for it, and it's a reality that a lot it's a reality that a lot of people aren't exposed to. And certainly as I said, the sympathetic black Muslim and the anyways, I lost my train of thought. So that's finally, Holly has. Let me see if I can find Holly's little. Holly sent me this. This is the little thread about the representation of Muslims in Persia. Oh, sorry, 120. So we're gonna end. The Muslim. Oh, I'm in the wrong place. That's in Discord. Oops. Okay, let me give me 1 second here. Yeah. So yeah. Oh, here the pitch. Okay. So here's the pitch black thread that a younger Muslim person said. We watched Pitch Black and I was signed up for a dorky 2000s alien movie, and I absolutely had no idea I was gonna stumble on really fun, imaginative, and cool depiction of Muslims in space made in 2000. Wow. I went from playing games on my phone, half listening, to sitting up and being like, "You're going to Hajj in New Mecca and doing tayammum with space dirt. Where did this movie come from?" So like this is from somebody who is game dev illustrator, and I don't know how old they are exactly, but somebody who has not been exposed to a lot of early noughties and 90s movies, probably, right? But anyways, so that's just like that's like one take from somebody who is Muslim about Riddick. And let me just look at my little thread here. Riddick. Okay. Yeah, this one. So I made this a while back, but that's not it. Okay, I just want to go through this real quick because this is just another just more on this my take on Riddick in a text form. So this is actually in response to when Mass Effect revival reminded us it was time to abolish the space police, because Mass Effect was, just in more context from this time, there were movies and games. There were, because I said there was a Riddick game. There's a new Mass Effect apparently coming out. But in Mass Effect, right, this was during the year of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, which obviously, like, police are killing and unjustly people of color all the time, and poor people, and doing all kind of other terrible things. But this was a time in which it really hit the forefront of the mainstream in the United States. Was 2020. The topic of defunding police began to seem more frequent. But what about maybe it's time, instead of reform, of abolition, The far-reaching fallout from these traumatic events. Let me jump down to Mass Effect. But BioWare's famous space opera, Mass Effect, suffers from a problem. Where the games experience runaway popularity at their height. Yeah. What might there be an abolitionist perspective impact on Mass Effect? What new jobs might Shepard and their crewmates be assigned? How do we take the rich instances of sci-fi melodrama and extract from them unseemly and violent drudgery of enforcing orders across a vast, chaotic frontier? How do we move away from the premise that simplifies the Lovecraftian mystery of the Reapers into interchangeable robo-zombies? Anyways, this thing is like very wordy, and it's not quite getting the message across at the rate that I would like it to. But a premise that neatly classifies a vast plethora of alien races into categories of law-abiding and lawless, one group to romance, another to gun down within the dimly lit quarters of space stations. So, in Mass Effect, you are playing the galactic US. You're playing the US Empire. You're playing the galactic space police. I mean, both inside of the cities and also internationally. You are stopping evil terrorists. You are stopping evil Syrians and evil Iraqi and evil people in Afghanistan with the U.S. military. It's very clear. Even like Halo has a lot of aspects of this in some senses. Like I know some of the newer stuff is different, but these big space franchises, right, in the noughties, a lot of them didn't go, because Riddick is also a new non-Star Wars space setting, right? That doesn't take that perspective, but Mass Effect did. And so I kind of wrote in response to Mass Effect, right? If Mass Effect is a game that takes the perspective and what paints in a good light the space police and the space world police, right? Because I said Riddick Universe is better because it centers space prisoners and craps on the space slave catchers and the space world police / space U.S. military, the necromongers, right? A lot of the thumbs down on Chronicles of Riddick. See, when Riddick came out, if you read the reviews, a lot of people really didn't like it. But you know, a lot of the reason why is because there are a lot of people. I said this in a more inflammatory way because I was trying to get the thing to be shared. But there's a lot of people that have been, as I already said many times, indoctrinated into pro-cop, pro-capitalist, pro-jingoistic U.S. military worship, right? Conditioning. And so they are inherently unsympathetic. They're also in a racist country that promotes racism to its population in ways that are many times not even recognized by the society. And they didn't like those people, Americans, right? And a lot of them are white people. They did not like the sympathetic person of color, Riddick, the prisoner main character, and the Muslims, as we already said, like Keith David's character, right? They did not like these Muslims coexisting peacefully with other religions in the space Middle East when the U.S. was demonizing them to make a war there. Because the U.S., again, it was hyper anti-Muslim, not for no reason. Same reason why it was anti-China for especially the last 5 years. Is trying to make horrible proxy and Cold War and war in Taiwan Strait with the country. These are intentional decisions by the richest people and the ruling classes and the neocon and the different exact factions within them, neocons, neoliberals, you know, Wall Street executives, Silicon Valley executives. They don't all exactly align, but they do align on maintaining planetary capitalism, what the United States empire is based. That is its entire existence, is to blow up every country that moves away from capitalism into anything like multipolarity, socialism, decolonization, and maintain hegemony with things I've talked about frequently. So Helion is home to many people of many cultures. So this is in Riddick. In the next movie, after Pitch Black, we coexist in peace, united by a purity of spirit. So this planet New Mecca, where Imam is from, that you don't see in Pitch Black, but you learn more about it in the sequel, Chronicles of Riddick. You learn that there are Christians, there are Muslims, there are Jewish people, there are many people of many faiths and many different backgrounds, right? There are white people there as well, but it's not majority, because guess what? The world majority is 90% not white. The global majority, and it's actually represented when you look at New Mecca with the. Let me see if I get a New Mecca people. There's a scene where they're all out, and you see like there are lots of people. There are lots of people in New Mecca, but the majority of them are not white. Right, so it's an actual reflects the Earth demographics in a space future. It's pretty amazing stuff. I mean, speaking of African futurism, Muslim futurism, let me see if I can get a picture of that. New Mecca. There's a scene where the necromongers arrive. The necromongers arrive, and they do a lot of killing. These people, they're all very Euro medieval and space American. They have Euro medieval armor and space American guns. And so, you know, anyway, okay, here's one with the people. Okay, so you can't really see it, but the necromongers are very much Western imperial people. That's the way that they're coded. But the people of the Mecca, you can't really see their faces very well here, but most of them are not white. There are white ones, but most of them are not. They have a plurality of cultures and religions, right? It's very diverse. It's almost like it's like Silk Road, you know, circa 1200. You know, it shows a positive, really world future, not just new just African future or just Muslim future. It's really like it's a positive, peaceful, coexisting civilization that is prosperous, not warring, actually multicultural. Like not just like, oh, we have multicultural, but we kill and imprison all the people of certain colors and ethnicities, like the United States and the West and Europe as well. It's like an authentic, positive future that is, I think it's like largely Muslim. That's why it's called New Mecca. I mean, a large percentage is Muslim, not all of them. And it's actually how Palestine was before the United States and the West installed a genocidal settler colony there, which was more peaceful coexistence and not less antagonistic, violent plunder and genocide, which exists there now. And so you know, Imam is one of the most likable characters of Riddick, a black Muslim kind of like coexistence before the U.S.-backed intervention in Palestine, like I said. And that's in this movie, Chronicles of Riddick. So Riddick, Chronicles of Riddick is a bigger movie. It's not just a horror movie with like 14 characters and then, you know, one or a handful of surviving characters. Chronicles of Riddick is like a big epic movie that involves an entire imperial invasion. It involves an entire imperial invasion. It's like Star Wars scale, but even more based than that. So, even better than Star Wars. When then Space Roman U.S. Empire launches an airstrike, they slaughter everyone for resources and force convert everyone into their death cult, right? Join the Necromonger religion and pillage with us or you die. Just like Riddick's planet and his people, like I said in the beginning, Riddick's entire planet was genocided by these people, these Necromongers. Before they were, the remainder were dumped into a prison system, also known as a slave system, right? Which is what the U.S. prison system is for. It's for both controlling populations and getting the maximum capitalist benefit from the labor, which is slave labor. Kind of like colonized POC now overrepresented in the U.S. military, right? And many of them sign up for the U.S. military. Kind of like the for-profit war bombing, genocide, and exploitation of resources from Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Palestine, the U.S. allies continue to engage in. And I wrote this like 2 years ago. And so U.S. is still doing terrible things to Syria and to all these places, so it's not really any different there. In contrast, 300 also 300 was another movie, came out around this time, just as a contrast, another contrast. Glorified Western white hyper-militarized society, fighting for freedom despite being a fash monoculture of soldiers and their property wives as fundamentally. And to be clear, women were considered subservient slaves of men. They were basically slaves. They did not have. Aristotle argued that the society became better when women were rightfully under men. That aspect of Greek society depicted in 300 is accurate, in fact. But in 300, Zack Snyder, one of my least favorite directors, depicted them as fundamentally virtuous and good versus the gender fluid, non-white Middle Eastern peoples, who were in 300, they were depicted as fundamentally evil and corrupting, run by queer drag queens. So the U.S. and the West come by this the queerphobia. This has been everywhere. Islamophobia, denigrating black and brown people. Just it's in this movie, and this was when the United States was fomenting the war in all the Muslim countries. Snyder's film helped foment anti-immigrant and Islamophobia that Trump later ran on. It manufactured consent for war on terror and the $21 trillion worth of forever wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, etc. to quote-unquote beat back Muslim hordes. This is everywhere the United States has bombed and destroyed. This is the Middle East. Of course, people quickly forget about these things in the United States because, well, the TV stopped playing them sometime in the 2010s because it wasn't conducive to making the U.S. look like it does anything good, which it doesn't. And so finally, it's the end. It's 141. So, Pitch Black is the first movie. Chronicles of Riddick is the second movie that I was just talking about. The bigger, more expansive movie. And then Escape from Butcher's Bay is a game where you play Riddick, who is re-imprisoned into another prison called Butcher's Bay, that he has to also escape from. Came out in the 2000s. It's a game that and then there's also Chronicles of Riddick: Assault on Dark Athena, which I have not played. That's not the game. And then there is just the movie Riddick, which was Riddick the movie. Is Riddick just Riddick. 2013 is most like the original Pitch Black. It takes place on a desert planet, and Riddick. In just Riddick, it's just called Riddick. He has to survive for a while, and then he gets to he is no longer in the Necromongers. He becomes the head of the Necromongers for one point, not necessarily because he wanted to, and then he gets put back, dumped on a planet, and also has Bo, what's her name? Bo, what the hell's the last name? Bo-Katan. Bo-Katan's Katie Sackhoff is one of the characters in this movie. Also, Dave Bautista's in it. And so Riddick has to survive, and the bounty hunters come for him. But it's also another surviving a planet with horrible killer creatures that come out of the ground, and they only come out once every 20 plus years when the planets align, and the two suns that are always keeping the light on in the scorching desert, suddenly all the suns turn off, and the planet is covered in night because of the planets aligning, and all these deathly creatures come out of the ground and eat everything. And that's what that is the plot of the first Pitch Black, and that kind of it kind of revisits that in Riddick. So that's what you're getting from that. Anyway, this is just informational stuff, and then also I make Neofeud. So that's the end. I think that's all I wanted to say about that. Yeah, there is Victor Gill. Victor says there. I didn't know there was a third one. There is a third one. Anyway, that's a lot of Riddick that we talked about today. I think we've talked about it pretty exhaustively. So now I forgot to post this to all of the places. So whatever. Who cares? That's all right. Maybe I'll post it later. But don't forget to support everything we do here by direct support through Ko-Fi. We also have Patreon. Don't forget to hit the subscribe, like, and share the video and all those things that help us. You can follow me at SilverSpookGuy. And but now I'm gonna play a trailer for a game also made by a person who made an anti-prison, anti-police, and anti-military industrial complex game from an indigenous colonized person's perspective. That is my native Hawaiian perspective. It is called Neofeud. That is on sale now. And if that sounds interesting to you, then consider picking it up, especially if you like cyberpunk and or adventure games. And I'll be right back.
The Illuminati created us. They wanted to build a god with their own hands, and instead they created us.
Just because I'm made of silicone and aluminium, I must be doing something wrong. That's machine stereotyping, that is.
That's reality, that is. Machines are second-class citizens.
Humans are sentient persons by default, ma'am. They have personhood by heredity.
There are thousands upon thousands of overqualified slum dwellers. You are my peon. Don't you get it?
This wasn't a job. It was always just an excommunication sentence.
We're pawns in a feud bigger than we can imagine. Turn the cogs of the machine before Leviathan grinds you up and swallows you and yours.
We don't get to choose our hand, comrade. Prince, peon, rich, poor, human, robot.
I invented the crux of the royal power, the secret to consciousness, our existence itself, the meaning of life.
I'm the $6 billion baller, not some troubled youth.
You are my greatest creation of all.
I had to build my own family. I hate your son. I hate your son.
I'm happy to smash all of the crowns and throw the gold shards down to the people. I will be the iconoclast queen.
But who makes you queen anyway? You? You in whose army, princess? You in whose army?
The Illuminati created us. They wanted to build a god with their own hands, and instead they created us.
Just because I'm made of silicone and aluminium, I must be doing something wrong. That's machine stereotyping, that is.
That's
Okay. Anyways, yeah. So don't forget, everything we do here is supported by the sales of Neofeud, which you can get on Steam. It is on sale for the next little bit, so consider grabbing it while it's on sale. Every sale does go to support what we do here at the Silver Spook Cooperative, as well as the. If you can leave even a very short review, it is hugely beneficial to us because it does increase the likelihood that the game will be discovered in the Steam algorithm. Sorry, my eyes are getting all this stuff right now for some weird reason. Anyways, so consider checking out Neofeud on Steam. You can also get it on itch.io for Windows, for Mac, and for Linux. If you would like to do that, it is Neofeud is there. It is also on sale there. Look at that. We're only $80 away from the $1,000 goal. So consider grabbing Neofeud there. It is for Windows, Mac, and Linux, like I said. And we also have games like Decolonators. That's a very anti-colonial game, which made by myself, a native Hawaiian and a native Vietnamese person. So consider that would be very anti-colonial. Indigenous Star is a game set between Neofeud 1 and Neofeud 2. And also there's Pigeon with Gun. That is a game where you play a pigeon with a gun fighting a good... Only thing that can stop a bad guy with a gun is a good pigeon that fights the cops. Giant Robot Gajillionaires and Bougie F-16 Pilots. And that's Pigeon with Gun. And also there's Woman. That is a book by Holly about the growing up in a right-wing evangelical Protestant Christianity. Very much like a necromonger-like society, but not in space. It's also called North American Conservative Christianity. And so it's a book that is for free, and it is also, you can support us by giving us some money when you pick it up on the itch. Also, there is Patreon at patreon.com/Neofeud. Consider helping us out to keep doing the work that we do here. With ongoing support, it really does help to keep the lights on and everything functioning here, and keeping the kids fed and the house up. And it really, we really do appreciate it. And also, remember, you get access to the Silver Spook Discord, the Silver Spook University, or all my content I've ever made, but categorized according to topic, as well as behind-the-scenes work on the games and other projects that we are doing here at the Silver Spook Kui, also known as a cooperative. Also, you can go to at Silver Spook Games at Octodon.social, at Silver Spook at Mastodon.social, and you can also follow, as I said, Silver Spook Guy at Silver Spook Guy on Twitter. And you can also follow at Silver Spook Games on Twitter if you would like to follow for game stuff. And then there's also Terminus C is the the main character is partially inspired by Riddick as well. That's why he has those glowy eyes. And he's also a very person at the bottom of the society. He escaped from a prison as well, and is trying to survive. The main character in Terminus Cyberstar. And so if you would like to play a cyberpunk game that is a 3D RPG game I'm the content director of that I wrote. Speaking of writers, I'm not on strike because I'm already done and it's not in the WGA. But this game is you can follow Terminus Cyberstar at Terminus C, and Deus Ex. It's a Deus Ex System Shock style game, and join the Discord if you want to do that. And of course, follow Holly. Don't forget to follow Holly Argent if you have not yet. Holly is of course the Tech Fairy, poet, educator, mod, etc. Married to myself, producer and manager for Kate Nick's show, which there will be a show coming up next Tuesday at 8 Eastern. So don't forget to join into that Holly produces and writes for. Speaking of writers, Holly's also a writer. So support our writers and their strikes. Holly's not on strike right now though. Holly's also a parent here along with myself, an educator at the Silver Spook Cooperative. So yeah, that is it. Thank you so much to the Patreons for your continued support. Massively appreciated. Not appreciated, appreciated. Hey, what's up, Norgir? Norgir is actually one of our longtime supporters. So thanks a lot for popping in there. Yeah. Norgir has been long time friend of Holly and myself. And we had other names. We had MySpace. Almost to the time when the first Riddick came out. You know what I'm saying? So thanks for dropping in there. And thanks to all the Patreons, and yeah, your support is massively appreciated. Thanks to you for watching, and until next time, keep your shined Furian eyes polished, or at least the goggles that go on top of them. You know what I'm saying? Keep your goggles polished. Okay, keep your Vin Diesel goggles polished. Be excellent to your fellow New Mecca travelers. Don't suffer necromongers. And yeah, we'll see you next time.